Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday night. Welcome to another episode of Zero to Hero, Season 3, Episode 7 tonight. Only a few more weeks left. This is definitely one of the more interesting seasons of Zero to Hero. We got two horses running. Mine, Big Drip O Ruby, and Zook has one. He'll be popping up here in a minute as soon as he's done with his stream. But yeah, only so week 7, we've got 3 more weeks left. Zook is going for profit on his horse, and for mine, I'm just trying to get it into a place where it can race decently. So last episode with Prospect, I kind of focused on trying to run 1400s with the horse. And if we kind of go back in time a little bit, we'll go to the 22nd, we will see that the reason why I picked 1400 is because the way the finish distribution was rolling out was kind of in favor of that being one of the distances at 54.5%. So it was the highest for me to kind of finish in the back. Now, normally I would pair that with something down here. For example, I'm looking for red that is trailing behind the white consistently. Now, in this case, the concentration of red, we're running way too close to the average of the competition that we are facing at our current class. So this to me is a sign that we are locked in to this class for this horse. So if you are evaluating, looking for a horse to buy, and you see a similar pattern to this on Haku, Know Your Horses, or from Know Your Horses, plug it in here, I would avoid that kind of horse, especially when you start getting volume behind races. If it's the first few races, maybe not as much. But definitely when you see the red triangle is very close to the white, what that means is, again, each red triangle is where your horse has raced, its average speed there. The white is the average of the competition you faced at that entry and class. So very, very close together means your horse is not going to really do too much. It's kind of going to sit in her horse purgatory. Not super exciting at all. Now, if we look down here, we can see, well, it definitely shouldn't be racing in class 3 where it currently is. Class 4, not super strong. It really needs to be racing in class 5. Again, we're looking for a slightly higher flame rate if your horse does flame. Not all horses do. It's not a coverall for all horses. But, these are kind of the things you want to look for when looking to buy a horse, or the things really you shouldn't be looking for. So, again, kind of going back in time, that's why I chose 1400. Nothing here is super appealing to me. Nothing really stands out too much, but that did. Now, let's take a minute. Let's just fast forward here. Ooh. All right. So, by going forward in time, we can now see that 1400, that 54% dropped down to 44%. If we look at the last string of races that Big Drip O Ruby ran, let's keep going. That one, I mean, this horse just hates anything past 9th. But you can see right here, we have really, we'll start with the string of 14s. There's an 8th, awesome, so great start. Then a 2nd, then a 4th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. Absolutely brutal. So now have to do even further work to get it down. And yes, realistically, if I was, really watching over this horse, I probably would have pulled the plug a little sooner and reevaluated. Especially after this second place right here, I probably would have stopped. But I kept going because I kind of wanted to illustrate a point. So, going forward now, and you can see again that the finish distribution at 14. Oh, sorry, that's for Phantom Agent. For Big Drip has dropped down by 10 percentage points and running very slightly faster. I'm sorry, the deviation slightly tighter. So both of those things being bad signs, both of those things when put together make sense. Redman, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So where I want to go this week, and again, I would have cut it off about 2 races sooner, but where I want to go this week is I'm just going to go now process of elimination. I'm going to look at 18 and 22 again. It's not going to be great. We're kind of at a somewhat known race mark at 12 and 17 each. And unfortunately have some wins and have some first through thirds, but it is right now mathematically my best chance. Both when we look at, the speed, we're flat and negative, and just the overall finish distributions there. So if we isolate these two out, 18 and 22, and you can see, yep, okay, so here's class 3 free, which is where I'm racing now. This should be pretty solid for 18. So again, not many red triangles where I've raced above and a handful behind. Same thing here, class 3 free 22, a ton behind. So very strong, a lot darker, slightly more, 5 more races here. Average class is a little lower, and we are getting close to the same amount of 7 through 12. So I would just kind of looking at that mathematically as well as looking at the speed that it has there. 2200 makes the most sense for me to try this week in an attempt to bring the horse down. So only a few weeks left. I want to try and, my goal for the end of all of this is going to be to really just get the horse down in a comfortable place in class 4. I realize that's not necessarily a great end all be all, but that I think is somewhat realistic. I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Power 1993. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. If you are new and I do not give you a shout out on the follow, it's StreamYard. Not all these notifications come through, so please let me know. Would definitely love to give you shout out and some support on that because I really, really appreciate it, and I definitely want to recognize you. Perfect timing here. The man, the myth, the legend, Zook. Zook, what do you drink?
How we doing, brother?
What's the beveragino of choice?
Wegmans passion fruit sparkling water. You had to do that to me, didn't you?
Sounds good. Hey, no, I'm wondering. I got my water going.
Let's
I got
go.
the Liquid Death non-sparkling.
Yeah, no, this was.
Almost just spilled it all over myself.
I went to Cheesecake Factory tonight, and
oh, nice.
No, listen to this. After we were sitting there for way too long, and I had my stream at 8, and we got there real early, and we had enough time. And me and my fiance were sitting there, and after 50 minutes, she went up to the manager. There was a glitch in their system, and they never put the order in. So it was 7:45, and we'd be sitting there for 50 minutes, and I had a stream in 15 minutes. We were like, yo, we don't even want it. We just got up and we left. But I love Cheesecake Factory, but I'm also someone where if you do if this situation happens to me now, they're for the foreseeable future crossed off my list. But they were a place I went to once a week. I love Cheesecake Factory.
What's your favorite thing to get there?
Crusted chicken Romano.
Whoa! All right. All right.
Every time, same thing. Don't even need to open the menu.
Oh, and that's good because that menu is huge.
It's too much. You can lose yourself in that menu. You can never order if you start reading that menu because there's too many things.
So I completely agree. And do you do the bread? And if so, do you just keep it coming? Do you prefer one type of bread, like
the dark bread?
Oh yeah, the dark bread with that. Lather that up with butter.
I got it for free tonight because we left and we paid, but we were eating the bread while we were waiting. So at least I got bread. I got the Cheesecake Factory bread tonight and didn't have to pay anything and just left. So I mean, that bread is I was such in a Cheesecake Factory mode that before I liquidated everything and became very liquid with cash, and and was getting back into the stock market a few weeks ago, my biggest holding in my portfolio was Cheesecake Factory stock. There's no analytics, there's no ROI, like there's nothing based besides the fact of I was like, people say invest in what you love, and I love the Cheesecake Factory.
I like that. So do you have a favorite cheesecake?
I would say Oreo, the Oreo cheesecake.
Really?
I think it's cookie.
That.
Yeah, Oreo or like cookie dough. If sometimes they don't have the cookie dough one at the one I go to, so I would get the Oreo. But yeah, I'm not a huge cheesecake from cheesecake guy though. I just want to put
plot
that
twist
out there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like I'm not a huge cheesecake at cheesecake.
So you're really
guy.
just in it for the factory, not so much the cheesecake.
Yeah, so just the factory. Even though the factory let me down tonight because there was a glitch and I didn't get my food, but I got some at-home made dumplings real quick in the microwave, and I ended up salvaging a night. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
I love it. I love cheesecake. I've had Cheesecake Factory cheesecake somewhat recently, but I have not had Cheesecake Factory
really?
to eat.
Okay, I'm the opposite.
Yeah, well, we should probably get together sometime and just best of both worlds. Let's make it all happen.
Yeah.
What up, Coliseum? How are you doing? Jungle Pony. We'll give the Food Alpha anytime.
Where do you live, Jungle Pony? It always boggles my mind. People who haven't been to Cheesecake Factory. I know the Zed thing is like there's people from like all over, but people that I meet from around me, it boggles my mind when they've never been to Cheesecake. I've never been anyplace more to eat. Never.
That's I mean, I know it's pretty popular, but I didn't know anyone that loved it as much as you do.
But it's over. The love is now over.
Yeah, it's done. It's done.
Yeah, it's a hard. This is a major break. Yeah, this is a major breakup, but I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna see some other people for a little bit. I'm gonna see what's out there.
Evaluate your options,
and then we'll see. Like if it's meant to be, I'll find myself at a table eating dark bread at Cheesecake in the future. But for now, I just have to see other people.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. I feel that. I feel that. So let's move on from the cheesecake to the in the factory to the ponies. So I was just wrapping up talking about Big Drip. So last week, I made the choice to run at 1400 because that was my highest chance of finishing at the bottom of the pack. And everything just completely went to shit. If look at my last string of races here at 1400 up in class 3. So here's a 2nd and 4, 4th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. And so I made the point of like, hey, if I'm really super focused on this horse, I probably would have cut off the races at 1400 right here. Looking towards next week, I narrowed it down between 18 and 2200. 2200, I'm running the slowest. I've got more races there. It's hitting horribly at class 4, free even. It's nothing but 22s for me. My new goal for the end of Zero to Hero is to just be at a comfortable spot in class 4 with this horse. And I would be happy. That's progress. It's not a win, but it's progress. Now I know in previous weeks we had talked about Phantom Agent, talked about your goals. One of yours was to be profitable. I believe that cutoff was what? Was it 0.06 or 0.08?
It was, I would say it's about 0.075. Yeah, I would say.
Okay, all right. So almost right smack dab in the middle. Where are you right now? I don't want to click over and ruin it.
Well, yeah, I was looking at the last week, but I'll go. So overall, Phantom Agent is at 0.04, basically 0.0395. So we're tracking basically slightly over halfway, which is nice. What's cool though, and it's really the first time we could talk about me legitimately doing anything other than what I have been doing for the past few weeks with Phantom Agent, is that we ran Pades the last week because it became a little monotonous with we just weren't performing in freeze. And I know I've kind of left the show, including last week, saying each and every week for the past 2 or 3 that I was just going to stick to freeze. Over time, we would win enough that we would win back our profit.
Mhm.
But this week we went paid, and it worked out pretty well. It won about 0.008,
Okay.
which isn't amazing, but like that's 1 week. If it was a whole month, that would be about, I guess, 0.03, 0.04, which isn't a crazy amount, but it was a week where I ran 25 races. Half the races were first or last at a 50% clip. Like half, like 6 were first, 6 were last. It was almost a
Yeah.
perfect U shape paid race week. So even though the
Wow.
ROI wasn't like too much there,
Yeah.
if I race paid like I did last week and I get the profit that I did, like I've always said, maybe it will not be by the end of the show like we made my goal. I will not lose money on this horse if I don't stop racing it over the long run. And we've said that since the beginning. And again, that's why I'll never stress over a bad week or what a graph looks like any one given week, because we've already seen it, the 4, 5, 6 weeks we've been doing this now. That it's gonna slowly get to that 0.075, and we're now playing the game of not if but when. Like we want to see it obviously
Yeah.
happen before we wrap this up. So that's kind of, we're pushing for that, and that was the onus of why we kind of dabbled in paids to maybe see if we could speed that up. And it looks like there's a potential chance where if the last week or last 2 weeks we had to maybe throw some paids just to maybe get to that, because we don't mind doing that for the opportunity to hit it. It could work out, so it could get exciting that last week or two.
I think it's definitely exciting. And to your point, like the model's proven. It's not
Yeah,
if but when. It's a race against the clock, and that's very very exciting. Mr. Marr, how are you doing? Welcome. Thank you for coming in. Um, so it's you've got a plan. It's a proven horse. It's just a matter of time. That being said, this is a 10-week experiment. Some people may be super comfortable with that time frame. Others may not be as much. It's like, how long do you want to sit or try on a horse? How big is your stable? Do you have 50 horses and this is one of 50? Do you have 2 horses? This is one of 2. So I just want to point that out to people that, Phantom Agent, awesome, super fun horse, performing well. Look at the finishes, look at the profit, but it takes time.
a lot of time, and like it could take like a while. Like who even knows? Like I would think we would get there like at the maximum a few months, but yeah, like you're right. Like, um, you gotta be able to be comfortable with, not getting it back right away. Um, and we are, and obviously it makes it a lot easier when you're able to identify early on, like, okay, this horse can grind, but yeah, you can't, just spend money on a horse, breed a horse, and look at these small samples and be like, hey, I didn't win it back. I saw Dan Shan, I think, was posting something in general either yesterday or the day before, where like he was showing like cool pictures of like just like bad, long, decent, but small, but like 15, 20 races of just charts of races that were such bad finishes. And he was like, this is Y2K2K. Like just a horse that you would think is amazing. Like any
Oh yeah,
20
yeah, I saw that.
snippet, like you take out of it, like every horse goes through that. So like you
Uh-huh.
just gotta be willing to, like, if you've come up with a plan that it can get to the task of getting your money back, but you do have to grind, just committing to not, for the purpose of this show is the one time I would say, like, yeah, if you're trying to have fun with it, like, yeah, we're racing for the clock. But for a normal horse, like,
Right.
don't force it. Like, if you have a plan that is working and speeding it up could potentially derail you, like, stick to what you know works. Because, like you said, like, that sometimes it takes a really long time.
It does. And also I want to point out like the what I like to call just the streakiness. I don't see people talking about this or complaining about it as much. Um but I believe it was Poppy brought up today on Twitter, like posted something like, did his preference change? I think he was just upset. He said, my horse is a donkey. But like, regardless of that, it's a close example of what I'm trying to get at, of the fact that you may go through a string of wins like Big Drip did, of just like really high performance. And if these were the first, 5, 6 races, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first 6 races of Big Drip, I'd be like, oh man, this horse is going to be a killer.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not the case. Not the
It's
case.
and yeah, like taking out of it's you're so it's there's almost nothing more important than looking at large sample size, or looking at it the reverse way, and kind of what the way that you just put it is like not look. It's not looking at big sample sizes. It's definitely not looking at small sample sizes, because you'll continually draw like completely wrong conclusions about horses that may cost you in the long run. It's you just gotta be willing to, like, sometimes some days, like, don't even look at the Know Your Horses page early on sometimes. Like I was doing that last week. Like I was like, every day till stamina for these 3 breeds I had, I'm just running them. I'm not gonna look at the end of the week at these 2 distances. I was running on all of them. I just wanted to get as much stats as I could. Like you can't, it's kind of like the stock market with that, in terms of looking at it every day will drive you crazy.
Yeah, 100%. Or like looking after every race, that single race isn't going to make or break something.
No.
And this circles back exactly to what I was talking about before you came on. Like I was kind of giving people a warning of, don't, if you're looking to buy a horse, you're using Know Your Horses, you're looking at Haku, you're on Broken Sea, please don't be, go to Haku. And you might see some things that may be a little favorable. So you might see a favorable finish position. You might see, 33% of the time it's finishing first through third. 50% of the time, 6 races, like, cool, that's off to a great start. But then when you pair the finish with the speed, and you can see that the white triangles being the average speed
Yeah.
of your normalized competition to where your horse is individually racing, when that is so close like this, and then you don't have like super high fire to support it, not all horses have or perform in that way, like, red flag should be going off that this is probably not going to be a great fit. And looking at it after every race, you might have an outlier race in there, you might not have an outlier race in there. It's just, there's so much that is going to happen. And so, like, again, pieces of the puzzle, you've got to put it all together. Don't step on the scale every single day. Don't check the stock market every single day. Like, yeah.
I have a question, an unrelated question that has nothing to do with either of our 2 horses, but overall play of Zed. If you were
Mm-hmm.
sitting on an amazing colt, like a top colt or top stallion, with the
Yeah.
way that the game is currently constructed, what would your thought process behind studying it out be?
So I would be first, I would just look at comps. So, if it's, I still think there would be there's a natural decline if it's like an exclusive or elite, but still like really, really good. So I would factor that in. I would also factor in the overall market, which I still don't think is great. So if it's not Genesis and I don't have unlimited,
Yeah.
I would hold off.
Okay.
I would wait for the market to try and recover a little more. Let Zed fix some of these things. Let people get more excited. Let more people get in, and hopefully make a little more ETH in that process long term. If you
Would
have,
you-
I'd say I have a longer term view. I would
yeah.
try and hold out. If it's Genesis, I'm throwing it out there right
Yeah.
now all the time.
I think, and
What
Genesis
about
is
you?
easier to wrap our head around. So let's remove Genesis from the convo and talk about bread, because, like you said, that's when the nuances like actually come into play.
Yeah.
Would your thought process be eventually, whenever you put it in, would you be trying to get those breeds, or are you in the market to like sell those breeds? Like, what's your type of play if you had if you bred a really, really, really good stud? Because I just I'm so interested in how people are gonna move going forward with like the stud sniper like changed the game on Twitter, and
Yeah.
no one like knows what to do. So I'm like just literally asking everyone that question because I think you can get so many different answers. So I'm just like interested to hear what you would say to that.
So I've got a good horse, and repeat your question again.
So you have a really good bred horse, like an
Yes.
amazing top bred horse that when stud sniper puts
Oh, am
it
I
out
trying to get it
there.
for myself, or am I trying to get money? That was the
Yeah,
question, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Basically, you have the type of horse that unless you put it at an obscene amount, when stud sniper picks it up, it's gonna get sniped. Are you like what is your like? Are you okay with your horses getting sniped? Are you holding off until you can better figure out how to keep them like in house? Like, I guess I'm really bad at asking questions until I say them out loud and then I formulate them in my head. Is the I guess my question is the days of like trying to keep blood in house over if you're trying to breed a horse? Like, do you just have to accept the fact now that you're probably going to get sniped and not get all three?
Yeah, those days are completely over,
Okay.
long gone.
Okay. That was my
Um,
question. Okay.
and if you, I mean, they have to have complete like private breeding come out. For to answer your question, I want to balance it out. I want to try and find a good match. I can get a few horses out of it early on, before it hits the first level of decay. I'm happy just to maintain it. Just keep some of that blood in stable. But then after that, yeah, I'm definitely more profit leaning.
Okay. Yeah. It's, yeah, there's so many. Like, I also think like cost basis goes into it. Like I was just talking with Cryptid Racing. We had him on. He bought Marathon Royalty, the horse that I don't know if you saw. It was the one that went for 2.5 UU last
Mm-hmm.
night. It's a Rendezvous Peak Comgo baby. So he bought it for
Wow.
2.5 ETH for the maiden, and like it's a unbelievable horse. Like it's only ran 5 races, obviously, but it's won 3. I think it came in second and third. Like the other 2, it looks to hopefully be on its way to what he somewhat bought it for. But I was asking him, like, I think when you get a horse of that cost basis, you have to be willing to like not take as many breeds in house early to get the ROI back as quick as possible. And I don't want to pump my own horse, but what I was explaining to him is I was like, say your horse became like what Dank Phantom is. Dank
Yeah.
Phantom's like 0.1 cost basis and his horse is 2.5 cost basis. I think even with the same type of horse, those two cost bases would get you to play the game differently. Because once you have that
100%.
higher cost basis, if you can get the definite return early on from just studying it out and giving them away, I think that's going to start being the play that we're going to see more and more as people are spending the higher amounts on these UU as Breeding 2.0 goes on, where it's going to go from right now where people are obsessed with holding in bloodlines. When people start buying these crazy, crazy premium UUs, they're going to be happily putting them out for stud and people to take them. So I think the shift will start when these cost bases actually start rising, that blood will actually become more readily available because they need the guaranteed money to make, and that's through the stud market.
I completely agree. If you're looking at point one versus let's say even one, I'd be looking to stud that out ASAP. Especially if I have a
100%.
few wins, I would cut back the races and say, look, it's proven. It's got this distance preference. It aligns with the parents. You've got a really strong idea of what you're going to get. I would try and maximize that first before I even think about racing. If I'm in at point one, I'm going to have a lot more fun with it.
100%. 100%. And
Um,
I agree with you so much. And I didn't say this to him, but like we're almost at the same page. And I don't know if you're this drastic, and I don't think I'm this drastic as well. But I almost said to him, like, yo, like if you do well in a quarterfinal semis and maybe even a finals, like with the type of parents that you have, do you consider like for the next like 3 weeks, like not racing it at all and then studying it out after
Yes.
1 month and then just seeing what you can get off of like 7 races? If you win 4, the reputation of its parents, people know what you spent on it. Like, I think there's going to be some real interesting ways people go about making back their ROI once they start spending more and more on UU horses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, like that can, if that scales, then that becomes really interesting because then you're going to have like the high cost basis and then you're going to have a lower cost basis. And then hopefully, in theory, then you get a handful of those lower cost basis breeds, get some good matches in there. And then you can either flip for profit or get your again, like you've talked about so many times, I'm going to make 60% back or 40% back from breeding. I'll make 20% back from racing, and then I'll sell at 50% of what I bought it for. And I think that's the opportunity, and I think that's how small players need to play this game.
Yep. 100,000,000%. And it makes it easier and more attainable goals if you do what you just said. Because, I mean, it's just the law of numbers. If you buy a horse for 0.1 and think you can sell it for 0.05, like in a month, like to make 10% on that, you don't have to make 0.1, you have to make 0.06. So when you realize there's salvage values or stud fees, if it's a colt, you don't have to set the mark you have to make from racing at that cost value. And the lower that number that you feel that you have to make racing gets, obviously the more fun you have because it's a lot more fun and easier to get to 0.02 than it is, 0.05. So a lot of things to factor in moving from horses. And what you just said, I'm like really a man of my word because over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been buying horses with that philosophy in mind. Like I'm even buying them at higher amounts than I know I'm going to be selling them for in a month, knowing that I'm going to sell them in a month. But I'm thinking, and my strategy is I'm going to make that difference a month of racing them. So I think there's going to be going forward a lot of temporary ownerships like that of people thinking the way I am, where you're no longer buying a horse for, I'm going to buy this horse forever to like breed down my stable. Because the fact of the matter is, like, if you get a cross or a pacer, even some elite, you can't really breed down that much. Some horses are only good for you for that month. And I found myself like, I'll sell some horses, a bunch of glue, and it'll add up to like 0.1. And I'll find a horse I like on the market for 0.1. And I just happen to have that. So I'll say, hey, it may not be worth 0.1. And I think like in a month, I could sell it for maybe like 0.07. But looking at the chart, I think over that month in tournaments and in paid races, I can make at least 0.031, which means I'm walking away with some type of profit, which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to look at it in the multiple phases of this game. We talk about, is it a racing game? Is it a breeding game? Is it a class management game? Oh, this goes back to my whole idea of this is a class management game.
Yeah.
And it's breeding money, it's racing money, and it's resale money.
Yeah, if you go in with the plan of, like I'm saying, of these horses not being forever horses, and you allow yourself to think about that potential salvage value, that's what allows you to come to these easier, stud amounts, racing amounts, like you're saying. So thinking about the end and moving on from a horse isn't a bad thing. Like before you get it, like that's part of the process of figuring out if it's worth it. Adding back that salvage value, that's just everyday economic trading when it comes to people buying assets. They're buying it with the plan of selling it in the future with the hopes of making enough along the way to cover whatever the difference is. So, I mean, it seems to be a recurring theme on this show, and I kind of like it because it's one of my things. Like, we've just really lost in this space what it meant to get like 10%, 20% in a month. And we've all become obsessed with like getting 100x. But like, remember, the stock market, which is like the main thing that everyone is looking at, like over the course of time, like goes up 8% on average a year. So like that's the benchmark. So if you're getting like 20% in a month, like, come on.
Right, right. Avon brings a good point up. If you're making 0.03 in a month, the horse isn't that horse a top 3% horse in the game? And if so, isn't it worth way more than 0.06? Yeah, but we're speaking kind of hypotheticals.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that I realized it when I was saying it. Like, I'm talking about like longer time frames than a month and smaller amounts than like 0.03. Like, I'm game planning, like, I'll have some of these like throughout the summer and like I'll be selling them towards. I was just saying examples of like, that were easier to follow. But yeah, it's more so like I'm buying a horse for like 0.1 where I know I'm probably never going to breed it. I'd be very happy to sell it like in the future, like in like 3 or 4 months. And I could sell it, I think, for like 0.07. So that gives me 3 or 4 months to make like that amount. But yeah, Avon, you're correct. If a horse like that, I wouldn't be probably selling for that difference if it actually did that math in a month. But no, the point still stands of what we were saying in terms of factoring that salvage value into what you're going to walk away from makes it a lot easier to make some horses make sense for your bankroll.
Absolutely.
Do you have anyone in the Maiden?
I do not.
Okay.
Speaking of making money, let's talk Maiden.
Have you looked at anything? Like any of the top horses to go through any of the breeds? Because there's some cool ones.
I looked at the Lucky Maiden, and
okay, yeah.
There were some. We talked a little bit about breeding a few weeks ago on here, and the strategies for maiden breeding I think are very interesting, but also make a lot of sense. So I'll refresh this here, but Grandeur Out, Edge of Boom, and Pound of Influence. I had sitting at the top 3. Let's see if they still are. And so I think this is a hey Mikma, how you doing? Kind of a sad reality of things, and I actually got very pessimistic when I saw this. One, good for arbitrage, awesome, fucking awesome. But the concern that I have is, when we talk about breeding, when I think of like an average or smaller stable, for you to be successful, you have to breed with variants to try and get some sort of variance out of that horse, out of your offspring, in my opinion. Yes, you want to match distance preference. Like, you want everything to kind of click. Now, these top 3 horses right here, there's 0 variance with them. There's next to none. These are all class 1, elite to very high ability horses, all very left leaning, all with similar distance preferences. When you match those together, you have a horse that hypothetically may or may not perform well long term, probably will, but you have the perfect maiden horse, because all you want to do is you want to get through these first few races, these first Discovery, Griffin, and then wherever you end up, probably class 1, but you're backed by class 1, and you just go from there. Like, these first 10 races are going to be so huge for these horses, and it's just shown here. You're breeding elite with elite, you get elite, it's left leaning, you don't need variance, you don't care about variance. And unfortunately, the downside to all of this is that it is, in my opinion, a case of the rich getting richer.
Do you think this say we take this, everything you just said was spot on, and if you look at like how it goes, it literally is a perfect thing. Like, as you go down, then the Zabos will show, and then the Finneys will show, and then the Buters will show. But does this leaderboard say that there's a breeding problem, or does this leaderboard actually show that breeding somewhat makes sense, and we're just screaming for proper segmentation? Like, because if you think about like what this actually is, this tournament isn't fair. Like, it's not, no one's taking advantage of everyone because everyone knows what they're getting involved in. But these type of leaderboards are not fair because the game is not for Z1 and Z1 babies to go up against even like Z5 and Z5 babies. But we're even seeing them go up against like Z30 and Z30 babies. So like for me, it's like almost okay that I get a leaderboard like this because then I show it off as okay, like you put the better horses with better horses more times than not, you get the better horse. And I'm okay with that. If you want to get into the nuances of, yes, there needs to be the lotto ticket. Yes, what you said about variance is completely spot on. But like 2.0 versus 1.0, I think this leaderboard actually shows how 2.0 is working, quote unquote, properly. But again, even though it's working properly, the fact that it is working that way is just showing how we're dying for segmentation. Like, you can't let us now know how breeding works and let people put the best horses together, which we're fine with, and then let them just go wherever they want, as long as, like you said, they're able to class manage, because that's what the game has become. Like, there has to be a way where if you make a Z60, it's not as lucrative as breeding a great Z2, but you can just go up against other Z60-esque horses.
Yeah, it's you said it perfectly. It's not a breeding problem at all. It's to be expected. This is what we should see.
Mm-hmm.
It's maidens are dead. It's done. Like it makes no sense. I'm sorry, but it makes no sense.
No, I mean,
I love this. I love the Z maidens. Amazing concept. And I know Lucky Jack has some segmentation to it, which is fantastic.
And that's why he does it. He's so smart for doing it that way, because that's how maidens have to be.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you said it perfectly. It's the racing. It's segmentation. It is wrong. It just, and that's the thing they have to hit. Like, I wanted to talk about this too a little bit, but like the Z News, the Open, the Z1 through 10 races that are going on right now. Like, why this makes no sense. This is I'm sorry, but it makes no sense at all.
No.
Why? And then are we also having, testing paid tournaments for horse player experience? I like the concept, but it's so unclear and so limited. Like, is this going to do it? But it's the start. You'd have to change it. You have to do it at scale. And this isn't scale. One tournament isn't scale.
No.
Avon says, it makes too much sense, but best horses are breeding all the best horses. So it compiles all the best horses in the hands of way too few people. Long term, you'll see 8 stables ordering the top 20 horses in each funnel. We're coming up in the world where we see 5 stables in a final. I completely agree.
Like we're saying, as long as finals and tournaments are the way they are now, if there's segmented, like if there's, let's just say, like the top horses, like we're saying, are in like those, like whatever 5% of stables, if we can find a way where they're just up against them by proper segmentation, and then the racing allows it so there's another somewhat tournament of like the next 5% where they're up against each other and they're not going up against the 5% on top of it, then it allows for you to find your niche. But right now, what Avon said is legitimately spot on. If the best blood is allowed to be kept in-house and those ones are allowed to run, like we're both saying, wherever they want, then what PK is saying and everyone saw on Twitter today, I'm not going to say, I'm not here to make any sweeping statements, but I can't convince anyone that that's not, a thing that could potentially happen, because what he's saying without segmentation could, unfortunately.
And even if you bring, there's some comments around talking about variance in breeding, variance in getting lucky in a tournament. Even if you brought back variance to breeding, it doesn't, the scale or the amount that you have for it doesn't hit properly.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say hypothetically that there is, 5% chance of hitting variance for a breed. Well, that's still not going to be at that elite level. Like, we are past that point. That is dead and gone. We are too far gone. So it comes down to, yes, I love variance, bring some of that back, but you have to fix the racing environment. You have to fix the segmentation.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's really, and it's so weird to say this, but I almost feel comfortable in saying it because like I'm never going anywhere, and like
Do
I
it.
love
Say
playing
it.
Zed. Like
Say it.
there's nothing right with like the Zed racing experience from the beginning of like Discovery, and like it starts with Discovery and it goes the whole way through like say like there's a lot to fix, and I almost think like it's because it seems worse because they don't match, but like it's doing Breeding 2.0 such a disservice because if they had that racing segmentation right from the beginning and rolled that stuff out at the same time, like everyone was saying,
Right.
what people would think about Breeding 2.0 could be magical. Like that's like a crazy thing to say, but if there was a place for butyrin crosses or just like crosses in general to run around where you can make like a little money, people that are breeding those would be having so much fun. And like, there's a lot of horses that I was breeding like Pacers, and they were coming in third and fourth, and I wanted to sell them, or I thought they were dead. And people like Doughboy would be like, "Nah, save them for Pacer only. They'll be good." And they were really good in just Pacer only. Like if there was where I can run every day for a little change, that
Yeah.
Pacer and just Pacer only stuff, like that was so cheap and easily attainable. Like so many people could find their way into the game that way. So it's doing everything looks wrong because racing and wrong. And when I say is everything, there's really only two things: it's breeding or racing. But I agree with the sentiment that it's very hard to judge breeding 2.0 with how racing is because no matter what breeding does or what you breed, it doesn't matter because the way Discovery is set up, you may breed for a certain type of horse and you may just get put in a spot where you don't even basically get to start with that horse. You basically start behind the eight ball. So until they fix that, we're really never going to get to accurately grade our breeds on a very consistent basis, which is frustrating. And then you get into the even further combos we can have of are you supposed to tank Discovery? Or are you supposed to use it for tournaments? Are you supposed to use it for like Discovery was never even supposed to be like it's supposed to be for Discovery. Like the
Yeah.
fact that people are even finding different ways to use it now just shows you like no one's using it actually to discover their horse. Breeding 2.0, you know what type of horse you're breeding for. You're breeding for a marathon horse. And
Right.
it's just like you're using it just to put it in more marathon races where we should find some sort of points where you just set all horses to that somewhere in the middle and let people go up that want to go up, let people go down that want to go down, let people figure out how to go up and down. But the getting stuck is just demoralizing.
We should change from calling it Discovery to calling it Misery.
It really
Um,
is. It really it's like slow like it's funny because I was going to bring up this example to you and it shows you how much of a sham Discovery is. So Glue Eater is a horse that won an A sprinter in the Maiden tonight.
mhm.
It was shit through its 10 Discovery races, but finished out Discovery because it saw it was struggling, got placed in Class 3, and then cleaned up Class 3.
Yeah.
This horse almost didn't
Damn.
make the Maiden because of how messed up Discovery, where you're supposed to figure out your horse is. When this horse finally got dropped in a class where who even knows if it's right class, but it finally just got dropped into a class, it started performing properly. So, like, thank God that this horse went and continued to go on and didn't use Discovery for quote unquote what it's for because now it won 0.06, which the breeding cost was 0.01. So it already 5x the cost of it, which is super nice.
The other thing about Discovery too is just like the volatility of it. Like the competition you're
Makes
racing
no
against is
sense.
completely different, and it's perfectly illustrated with this horse.
Makes no sense, dude. The competition, you can't draw anything from Discovery besides getting 10 samples on whatever sample size you're trying to grow in the future. But in a vacuum, like
Yeah.
you more times than not, you form like the wrong opinion of your horse. Like, know what you cannot unilaterally tell anybody like what like a fourth place in the Discovery race translates to. Like, you can be in a
Right.
Discovery race where that could be like a C2 win. You can be in the Discovery race where that's like a C4 12th. Like, the competition on a day to day based on what people are breeding is just not conducive to actually studying your horse. Like if you were to discover your horse, there needs to be like a baseline where everyone goes through like some type of similar discovery process of the competition I go up is like similar to the competition you go up. And based on like what I got like weeks ago, you can kind of base what you're doing on like relative to how I did. Like it's like you said, it's call it misery, call it whatever you want. But I think we all agree that the term discovery definitely does not describe the way you feel about your horse when you're done with those 10 races.
100%. Unless, I mean, what we're talking about here is for, what I'll say is 80%, 90% of the horses
Oh, yeah.
that aren't winning, getting first through third, flaming like crazy, or, just the 10, 11, 12, that aren't just super, super, super strong. Aquila says, thoughts on sliding scale of lotto ticket roll, where the lower the Z or bloodline, the better your odds of hitting that lotto.
You see me ask BG about this on Twitter. I asked him about this exact question, and he put a graph because I was obsessed and like diabolically like asking so many people about this. And in terms of like, I just wanted to know, BG, you showed us basically breeding 1.0 is random. Like,
Yeah.
And I basically agree with you. But like, are you telling me that it was equally like possible to get like a NACA exclusive? If I buy a NACA exclusive UU right now, is it the same chances of being a killer as like a NACA elite UU from breeding 1.0? Like how random was it? And he like presented a chart that showed kind of like the mean and like how far each of them go. And like a lot of them were very similar. Like it looks to me looking at that chart, like a NACA elite UU from breeding 1.0 should be priced pretty similar to a NACA exclusive UU if you're going back and looking at the lotto, which goes against the very question that he's asking, which is what I was wondering, and which one would think is like, yeah, your chances of hitting a killer legendary are higher than an exclusive, which are higher than an elite, which are higher than a cross. But looking at what BG said, it does look to be like that, but it doesn't look to be very material between some of them. And it doesn't look to follow any pattern where like legendary to exclusive is the same between exclusive to elite on the NACA side, and like on the Zabo, it's like completely different. Some of the gaps between them, and there's some of them where there's gaps on the NACA, there's no gaps on the Finny. So like it's a lot of completely random. Or if you're buying lotto tickets in UU from breeding 1.0, definitely don't pay that much or any of a premium for the next breed up, because the numbers are pretty confidently showing that your chance at that crazy variance is similar.
It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Because you would think it would be what he said, right? Where the killer's what he's asking. And that's how at the minimum, if it was random, there should have been like, okay, legendary is random, but the one thing they can keep track of is you have this % chance, which means exclusive is this % chance, and elite is this % chance. But it doesn't seem like that. It seems like it was completely random.
And doesn't that kind of coincide too with what the lore was about the horses, which I know it all isn't true, but of just like the blood being passed down, the higher the variance, ability to pass down, like the bigger swings of the lotto kind of a thing. Oh shit, Brett Smith is here.
I just saw him. He was in mine. He's followed me back to my streams now, but he just sends me one corgi.
Oh, all right. Well, I feel honored. I get
he just sends me one corgi sporadically.
When was the last time you saw them?
No, he came today. Today, like before I hopped on this stream.
He really? Because I was watching the end. I didn't see him in there.
No, he was just there in the beginning. He did one corgi.
Nice.
Yeah, Brett Smith 69.
Is that did you see the was it Ganapati?
Oh yeah, Ganapati bots. Yeah. It could be.
Is that
or it could be a bot that he made.
A bot maker making bots for Twitch? That kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. I'm just gonna say it. Well, Brett Smith, thank you. for gracing us with your presence. I don't know
Oh
if
my
you
god,
can
he hit me
feel
with one
emotion or not.
corgi again, dude. He hit me with one corgi.
Oh, I think that proves that Brett Smith is not a bot.
Yo, yeah,
um,
who is this man? But yeah, like if you, oh, you're looking at it right now. So like, yo, like we're saying about Discovery, this
oh
horse
yeah,
got no flames and got crazy placement. Like, how many people would have given up on this horse when like the purpose of this horse should have been like what happened when it went over to C3? Like your Discovery
yeah,
is, oh, whatever level C3 is, which you know what the level is. It's C3 level, which you don't know what a Discovery race is. Like, okay, I got first, second in C3. That even if this was 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th in C3, that's Discovery because you know what the baseline is. It's C3 people battling. Like in
yeah.
Discovery, you go from like a C1 quality race to a C4, and you're comparing if it's in the same funnel, just finishes, but the competition is way off that the finishes matter nothing relative to each other. That, um, when they're talking about onboarding and keeping people around, the first thing you got to do and the easiest thing to do is, let people figure out their horse as soon as possible so they can figure out exactly what they want to do with it. Because the easiest way to get a bad taste in your mouth is to get burned on a horse either way that you think is good and you buy it because of Discovery and it's not good, or you don't think it's good and then you sell it and it ends up being a killer. So we want to make sure if people have good horses in their stable, they're able to figure out that it is, as said,
Just
a good
scrap it
horse.
completely. Just scrap it completely.
Yeah. But what would
Don't.
you do? So what would you do? Like what's your, do you have a specific, um or even general, if you don't have too specific, like what would you replace it with?
Nothing. Because like to the point that you brought up earlier, Discovery is known. Like if you breed quote unquote correctly, you breed marathon and marathon, you're probably gonna get a marathon. Like you're breeding, and then your Discovery becomes your advantage at that point.
Yep. Yep.
So then I'll just run sprints the whole time, being a class. Like it exacerbates the class segmentation issue so much.
I agree.
Scrap it, get people in, and it's not necessarily going to fix things by getting them into the class system sooner. But it's definitely making things worse because it's giving them almost, it's like a boost to get down in class to at least help them out in the beginning.
Would you start them with like a certain, like the one number that gets thrown around a lot is like 1,500 because I think that's what they're born as.
Yeah.
Is what is that, like
Yep.
C3?
Yeah.
And then you kind of just go like, I think, like you're right, like whether or not that should be the specific plan going forward, like I think until you come up with one that works, it's just like run the Griffin, scrap Discovery. I guess if you want to start at 1,500 and the Griffin counts for Elo, like that's that's a nuance that I guess you can debate a little bit more intensely if they were even to decide that they wanted to go this route. But like start at 1,500, do the Griffey or whatever class they end in after the Griffey, after you add the points or take away the points based on finishing, like let them go there. Like if you start in C3, it's just so much easier to manage your class. And even if you don't have a down button, at least it gives you the time from C3 to C1 for more than the 2 tournaments that Discovery allows you to run, where that probably gives you at least like a week and a half of tournaments where, hey, even if you got stuck in C1, which unfortunately is still going to happen always to some horses, no matter where they start, like it
Yeah.
gives you more time before you get there. And the more time
Yeah.
you have, the more opportunities you can make back some money. So I think you hit it right on the head, nail right on the head, where even before you come up with a specific plan, I think we all agree that at the minimum, you just can scratch it and replace it with nothing besides the old system of Griffies as it stands. And who even knows if you need anything else? Like that could even be an interim decision that becomes the full time because it worked in the past. I don't think anyone ever had a problem with how horses, got, sometimes, they didn't love that it was tied to Z numbers and such, but it's definitely better than, running these sham 10 races based on competition that's all different. So, Griffin, Get rid of discovery. Like you've always said in a class management game, let's let people start actually managing classes if that's what the game's going to be about.
And I think that makes Griffin so much more exciting
So
because
much
if
more.
I know I've got a distance, I'm probably going to be going up just against distance. It doesn't matter if I win, lose. I want to win. I want it to be exciting. I think it makes it more fun. Avon brings up the point, and I want to get your opinion on this. I have, I think, a pretty strong view on this, but I want to hear yours first. Why not Discovery setup where the objective is to get out is running a race at each distance? What are your thoughts on that? 9 races, 1 at each distance, and your placement there places you in a class. If you want time to think, I'll give my take.
It's for me, my quick take is it better? Potentially, I would vote yes if you held the gun to my head, but I still don't think it's full on discovery because these horses still don't know what distance they're at. So again, who knows the quality of like the 1200 that you're running? Like, is it horses that it's 1200 is their distance? Is it horses that it's not? Where again, if you're discovering in C3 or a class that's already established, a lot of times based on the day in the tournament, you know if people are going up, down classing, going for fourth. So you have a baseline of how you're performing up against those horses. Where if you go into races where you don't know what horses are trying to accomplish, like it's tough to get a baseline to compare your horses. I guess what I'm trying to say. But Avon, if you're I like it's better. It's better than now. It's not gameable. So from that standpoint, it's not gameable. But on the other standpoint of for like actually discovering how good your horse is, I don't know if it still does the full job of that.
So I agree. I don't think it's gameable per se. I don't like it because I don't. Avon, I'm sorry, I love you, but I'm going to disagree with you here. I don't see the purpose of it. So, if again, going through the examples I gave earlier of you breed distance with distance, marathon with marathon, you expect marathon. Why do I have to run through sprint and mid when I'm expecting marathon? It, horses can't run well necessarily at high class at all distances. I guess what let me put this back at you, Avon. What would that tell you? How would running at all distances benefit you as a horse owner? Maybe there's something I'm missing here, but to me, I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, but all that does is delay time to fun. Um, Evens the playing field. So does it even the playing field by if you're a monster at marathon, you're shitty at sprint, it like levels you out?
Well, my thing is
Wouldn't
this.
that bring everyone together to the midpoint though?
My thing is, there's two things that are wrong with Discovery. There's one that it's gameable, and there's two if you're not gaming it and trying to learn about your horse, you can't actually discover your horse based on the competition because you don't know, and it
Sure.
fluctuates. So I think what he's saying completely fixes the first half that I said, the gameability of it. Everyone just has to enter in one of the distances. You get some stats, you move on. The second standpoint of discovering your horse, we still don't know the competition because you can be entering a 1200 against horses that are just putting their horses in obviously
Right.
to get into their 1200, and you might just happen to run against 11 other sprinters where I might happen to run against like 11 marathon runners, 11 marathon runners, but all me and you are going to do is compare like how we finished. Where at least if we're doing that process in C4 on a keep on winning day, we have pretty similar quote unquote quality of opponents in the middle of that day when the same amount of horses are trying to go up as they're
Sure.
trying to go down. So where we place relative to each other is actually a comparative stat that you can use to discover how good a horse is.
But like why does discovery at 1200 matter if I'm a 2400 horse? What does that do for me long term?
Oh, Oh, it doesn't. From discovery purpose, he does nothing.
Like to me, it just
I guess
delays the
I guess he's just
inevitable.
not allowing you to. I guess he doesn't. Does he not want people to? I guess if you have a marathon horse, he almost wants to take the ability to run like 5 sprints out of your hands. I think that's the game ability that he's almost. I don't want to put words
Isn't that
into his
solved by
mouth.
just right? Sure. Isn't that solved by just removing it altogether instead of
Oh,
forcing people to do it?
100% because you get to the same point at the end of it because I keep on saying that you actually don't discover anything from those 9 races. I really don't think. So you're taking away the game ability and adding races that you don't actually discover anything. You might as well just take the 9 races out.
Yeah.
Again,
I
I
think
don't think it's
Avon's
bad.
solution is
It's
a
better
big
than this way,
from where we're
for
at.
sure.
Oh my gosh, so much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
It's 100% better than this way. But if I'm saying like if we're gonna come up with a like the ultimate plan, I think that I probably wouldn't say that one is the perfect one. But 100%, if you're saying that one where you have to run one at all 9 versus this one, at least that gives you some sort of ability to look at one speed at each, which may speed up your process. Even though I agree with you 100%, like why are you looking at your sprint speeds at all if you bred 2 2,600-meter runners? But yeah, I mean, I think you would at that point you
I
just
see
get
it.
rid of.
I see it now. Yeah, I see it. If we have discovery, we have to have discovery. Avon's proposal, Avon's pitch is definitely the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, you need a rank class reach distance because that's how you use horses. Otherwise, higher rewards at the top and have seasons that monthly reset every month. New champs every night. Yeah, Lucky Jack, you're 100% right. I've always been a seasons proponent. I've always been because seasons allow for a reset and reset allows for like no downclassing. That reset is legit. Each month, you start with a Griffey. It just starts like the reset with that, and then you go up if you want to go up. You go down if you want to go down, and they find ways to incentivize you going up just that month. And I think that I know I'm thinking big and like way in the future, but hopefully when Zed gets big, like I don't think it's that difficult for them to find like a monthly C1 sponsor. If we're all of the belief that like Zed's going to be like a power esport, that's like the easiest thing for them to find at that point. But yeah, have everyone legit start at the same spot, incentivize the different classes, obviously by more at the top, and then we're all just playing the EV game of your horse. Hey, based on how they're juicing it, has the most potential ROI at C4, so that's where I'm going to put it. Maybe the next month they do a season where your highest potential EV is at like C2, so you're racing it different that month. It also allows them to try things and mess up, knowing that at the end of each month they can reset. And I think if people knew they were going to reset, people would potentially let them get like real crazy during those months. And as we all know, like if you let anyone get like real crazy with things, a lot of times that's when you come up with like the coolest ideas. So I think seasons has almost always been the way to go with this, to kind of it creates a lifespan on horses that can't die because you only have a month to be where you're at, and then at the end of that month, at the minimum, everyone's back to the same spot again.
I like that a lot. I like what Avon's saying here. And again, this is the old class system.
Yeah, it's the old class system. Yeah.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Bring it
like
back.
They already had it, so they can definitely put it back in. Like that was 10 times better.
Yeah.
And like imagine how much that would incentivize. Think about this. Imagine how much that would incentivize breeding 2.0 if we all know how important it is where you start and how much of an advantage it is to be a Z20 plus and start at 1400. Now you got people thinking, why would I breed a Z21 plus and put good blood down the line that far? Because the difference between starting at like 1400 versus 1575 is like a crazy amount that now, look, I'm going to take my Z5 Finny Genesis maybe 1 month and look to see like what Z15 exclusive is out there, knowing that if I make a killer and breeding 2.0 works as it is, I'll get dropped in like C4. And if, like we're always saying, it's a class management game and we pride ourselves on being good at that, if you drop me there, then it's on me to stay there. But Zed is now taking it out of our hands and allowing us to blame them. Where I
Yeah.
think if they put people in classes that they think they could be good at, we quickly realize that like we're all not as good at the game as we think that they are. But right now, they're not giving us that opportunity. But Avon's strategy definitely is cool because it incentivizes, and you can even break it even further. And like I like his segments, but if you went like way low, like imagine like if you bred like a Z100 plus, you start crazy low. That gets people start
Oh.
to breed like way down the line because you know how much of an advantage it is where you're in a class where basically only Z100s start in because those are the only
Yeah.
people that get that low to start. And
A-
then if
And
you're
it
good,
makes
you can go all the way up, but the amount of time it would take you, you would win so much money along the way that but even if you hit a C1 wall with your Z100, you would have won enough money along the way starting so low that you can't complain.
and that's beautiful because let's say, okay, Z100s, essentially start in class 6, hypothetically.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
You you can be competitive there. You're not going to have the monsters there. It's a more
Nope.
comfortable racing experience. You're not
Yep.
guaranteed money, but hypothetically, you could make some money. Build that up. Roll that into either a probably not a breed, but maybe buying then a lower Z horse. And then like
Yep.
slowly working your way up the ladder while still having a performer like it's a very additive um user experience versus a subtractive one, which
It's
I think Avon is really doing a nice job of talking about.
it's really like a magnificent system where if you think about it, if you breed properly this Z21 plus where you can manage the class properly and you can keep it at 1400, you're shielded now from Z3s to Z8s unless they want to go through the process of losing 100 class points. And like, God bless them. If they breed something that has that down button ability, they also figured out breeding 2.0. So you can't play a game that they're also not allowed to play either. So if they figure it
Yep.
out, so be it. But it's on them to figure it out. It's not on like Discovery for you guys to be placed in the same class system because some sham Discovery, and now you guys are up against each other in C1, and these Z4s are killing you. Make them have to really decide to downclass and not win any money and lose for days and days and days if they even want to get down low. And as you just brought up, if only Z100s are in that class 6, the Z3s and Z4s are going to have a tough time classing down if all that's down there to start is those Z100s, and the good ones will move up. So like the good ones will be out of there. So Z3s will really not be able to downclass because all that will be left are like the middling lower level
Yep.
ones that will push them back up.
100%. 100%. I love this. I love this. This is
Yeah,
this
it's
is
really
it.
good actually. It's the perfect system. It really is.
I I agree. I love it. I like it a lot. And then this also increases horse value.
Mm-hmm.
This gets allows people to get in for a low cost basis. This incentivizes more breeding across the board. What someone's going to make a name for themselves one day, hopefully being the best Z100 plus breeder in the game.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
100%. 100%.
and like that's exciting. That's fun. 100% way more user friendly. Like I think this is the tide that raises all ships or whatever that phrase is. Um, yeah,
There's
boom.
more onboarding time. You're going to get more people to stick around if they can get a cheap Z100. Breeding 2.0 took care of the fact where if they put together 2 marathoners, they're more likely to get a marathoner. So that's a start because you feel like you accomplished something. If then you're putting it into marathons against other Z100s, your chance of winning goes way up versus when you're going up against Z10s, Z20s, Z whatever, you're more likely to win those races. The earlier you get people winning or having the chance to win or feeling they could win, the more likely they're to stick around. Think about what you said when you showed your horse, right? You picked those 5 races randomly that if you were like, big drip, if it ran these 5 early, I would think it's good. Like sometimes, like
Yeah,
people's mindset is just like all about timing. Like there's people that got into the game at the same time as me that aren't here anymore because the horse that they got, their first horse stunk. and my first horse just happened to be really good, that a lot of it, you just got to make sure to stick around with it. And over larger samples, those people didn't realize that if they stuck around, more likely than not, if we were all just buying UUs, we would have gotten the same amount. But the fact that I got a good one first made me realize and give me the onus to stick around, that's the thought process that they have to have with keeping people here. If you're going to ask people to come in, most of them with smaller bankrolls and most of them not being able to get high knock of blood, but then putting them up against high knock of blood, they're going to lose. And then they're not going to spend any more money. And that's legit the last thing that we need happening right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm excited for this. This is the most excited I've been about Zed, and it's not even something that
I was just thinking that. Like, I was like, this is happening. This is going to be great.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to read Z100s and like,
let's go.
Like, no, don't do that because your Z100s will be discovered into C1.
Right. But yeah, and that opens the door again for community, for content, for all different tiers and levels of players, and that's beautiful. That's
everyone
amazing.
can feel like champions, because right now you can only feel like a champion if you're a champ of the general leaderboard, because that's all there is. But look, is the champion of C5 like the greatest, like as good as C1? I don't know, probably not. But like there should be a place for just C5 champions, and that should be able to be like a niche that people develop. And right now it's just too tough to do that, where we just got to get to the point where something like this class system would definitely allow it, and start you off in a place where if everyone's as good as this game as everyone thinks they are, then you can have a lot more successful horses if they give you basically an open canvas to start painting on in the proper beginning setting.
Absolutely. All right, we are just over the hour mark. About time to wrap it up. Is there anything else you wanted to review, talk about, discuss before we close out for the night?
No, honestly, this next week, I'm probably going to be pushing Paids a little bit more. Phantom Agent, we saw it was successful. We didn't do it that much this week. I think this week, again, we'll still race all the frees and try and qualify, but a lot of times if the frees we didn't qualify, we wouldn't race paid. I think you'll at least, when we look at Phantom Agent next week, we'll at least see 1 to 2 paid races per day as we try and push to that 0.08 mark that we got over that halfway point. And the nice thing about paid racing is you really just need like one win. Like I go on a heater one week where I win like 1 or 2 races. I like flip the pace where like I'm going to blow by it. So that's basically my strategy. To grind for the tournaments will still go on, but we'll probably see a higher population of paid racing as well as we go after that profit we seek.
Very, very exciting. And I'm going to just refresh it on me, but I'm going to hit 2,200.
Yep.
It's my slowest time. Yep. It performs the worst at class 3 free and class 4 free. So I'm going to be hitting 2,200 hard. Can't wait to watch that finished distribution normalize out and end up winning like 5 races in a row again. So yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Blast as always, incredible discussion. This is slowly becoming my favorite part of the show, is just the discussions that we have. Zook, always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back. And big shout out to Avon, Blazer, Asmathic, Lucky Jack, Aquila Creek, Brett Smith, I Am Swim. I think I said Blazer. For contributing and hopping in chat tonight. Redman, as well as the new follower, Mr. Power, 1993, and Coliseum Racing. Also, we never figured out where Jungle Pony was from.
We'll pretend. Let's say North Carolina.
Okay, all right, North Carolina. Mr. Mar, OG, and Kingpin Racing, thank you all for contributing to chat tonight. Zook, I have $1 million business idea I'm going to pitch to you after this, and we will review it on our next stream.
All right, so you want me to hang out after, or are we hopping off for the night?
Oh, no, we can hop off. I'll just shoot you a DM.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. All right,
brother. No, this was great. I'm around next Monday, so if you're around, we'll be back. If not,
to be determined. It will be sometime next week for sure.
I'm flexible. So, Guru's live. So,
okay.
Go check him out after this. I'm sure he's streaming the finals. So if anyone has the finals for the Maiden, go hop over.
let me hit that raid quick. I appreciate that shout out for that.
Yeah, Asthmatic, good shout out. He's probably live for.
What's his stream name?
Is it like OT? He changed it, I think. Let me see if I.
Yeah, if anyone has
Yeah,
his
OTB
name.
run. That's what I thought.
Okay, OTB run. That's the wrong word. I just typed 3 times.
Yeah,
Perfect.
OTB
Okay.
run.
Yeah, everyone stick around. We're going to go give him a raid right quick. 2 seconds. Just, yeah, okay. OTB run. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Don't go anywhere, people. Don't go anywhere. All right. We're going in 7 seconds. Give a big shout out to Guru, aka OTB Run, when we head over. Thank you all, everyone.
Let's go.
We'll see you next week.
Peace out, everyone. We'll see you next week.